Coach, you don't have to take a question from Piper since you're going to be on with him in 4 hours. You can refuse his. Okay, did everybody that wanted a allow record get that permission?
I did.
Okay.
Yep, good to go.
Okay, here's what we'll do. I'm going to turn it over to Coach. Coach, if you want to start with an opening statement about the signing of Adam Miller, and then I'm going to call you guys up on questions. Try and keep a little order to it. With Scott, you'll be first, and then I'll kind of go through, and at the end, we'll see if we've got anything left before we all hang up. So go ahead, Coach.
Well, first of all, welcome everybody, and it is great to see you, and hope everybody's staying safe and continuing to do their part to flatten this curve. With that, it's an honor. We're really excited to finally be able to announce and talk about the state's best player, Adam Miller. With his signing of his NLI yesterday, and Adam's obviously very worthy of everything that and all the awards and accolades that have come to him. I go back 2 years plus with Adam in an individual workout that I watched after a team workout at Morgan Park, and the intensity with which he worked out, and there wasn't a coach there. This was a self-driven, self-motivated workout after about 2 hours of a team workout, and I made the comment to Nick Irvin at that time. I said, "This young man's got a chance to be really special." Fast forward to the spring, and we saw them play a couple times, obviously recruiting Iowa. State championship game, which I thought he was as dominant as any player on the court as a sophomore, and he did it from the defensive end, and that impression has never left. Adams turned into one of the outstanding two-way players in college basketball. He's an extremely athletic young man with a terrific body. He has the ability to not only play the point, but he has the ability to shoot it as well as anybody in the country. He does that with deep range, and then he's got a game that is high IQ. A very willing and unselfish passer, and you add that component with the two other young men that we signed in the fall, and we're really excited about the IQ and the feel that this group has as basketball players. But Adam's got a ready-made body that will continue to develop under the tutelage of Adam Fletcher. But a guy that is definitely one of the top players in the country. And his versatility will be very evident as he joins our program. So we're ecstatic. I think it's he's a winner. He's an outstanding student. He's a guy that unfortunately probably didn't have the opportunity to win another ring and state championship this year with coronavirus, but has been exceptionally well coached with Nick Irvin and all the success that has come out of the Morgan Park program, and has spent most of his life in Peoria, very close with DeMonte, and we couldn't be more ecstatic to have this year's Mr. Basketball joining our program.
Okay, we'll get started with questions. I'm going to start with Scott Ritchie. Go ahead and Scott, unmute yourself and whatever you got for Coach.
Hey, Brad, I guess just how do you maybe foresee Adam and Andre maybe complementing each other, kind of playing off of each other?
That's going to be fun to watch. You're talking about two guys that have the ability to make others around them really good. And They're both very, very good passers. They're both capable scorers at a high level. I think, Adam's got just tremendous range. He's a tremendous shooter, and yet can play on the ball as well. So I think there's a lot of excitement from my standpoint about the thought of those two developing an unbelievable chemistry with each other in the backcourt. They both played in a tournament together in South Carolina, middle of the year, and Curbelo's team was very good. I think they maybe got beat in the finals, and he was the MVP. But those two developed and forged a relationship there. So that's exciting. They've been building on that, but they're both guys that make their teammates better, and they'll make each other better. There's no doubt about that.
Scott, do you have any follow-ups?
Yeah, just with, I guess, Adam and Andre, then, both of them, how do you see them fitting in with the guards you have now, Trent, Monte, Austin, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it gives us tremendous talent. I think every one of them are different. They're not like pieces. You throw Austin in that mix, and you've got a 6'6", 6'7" perimeter guy that extreme athleticism. You've got the experience and leadership of DeMonte Williams and Trent. Both of those two have turned into elite defenders, have a wealth of knowledge and can help tutor those young guys. I think when you look on the court, it gives us an opportunity to play small. It gives us an opportunity maybe to play four guards and have tremendous passing, have tremendous athleticism. And that's pretty exciting to have that flexibility.
Okay, we'll go to Gavin. Good here, covers it for the Peoria Journal-Star. Gavin, go ahead. What you have?
Hey, Brad. I hope you're well. Just wondering about Adam. What do you see about his game that he needs to improve on the most as of right now? And what do you think is his best attribute as of right now?
Well, I think the one thing that really excited me with Adam was watching him at USA Basketball last summer, and you're talking about what the best players in his class, and the heavy, intense instruction and the discipline, and his fundamental base is really, really solid. Athletically, he's a young man that's not going to get overmatched as a freshman. You look back at this year in the Big Ten, and really how many freshmen impacted our league. There's not a ton, and those that play are usually ones that physically are more mature and ready to go. So he's extremely athletic. He scores it on a lot of different levels. But I think he's ahead of most with a mindset about what he does on the defensive end, and he takes great pride in that end of the court. To see what his weaknesses are would be unfair when I haven't had him one-on-one in the gym and watched him. He doesn't have a lot. I say this to all of our players: you can never shoot it well enough, and you can never handle it well enough. And those are things that we'll always work on. But just gaining experience would be the one thing that he doesn't have yet, but will come very quickly for him.
Okay, we'll go to Joey Wagner. Joey, if you've got something, now is your time.
Hey, Brad, obviously 2 years ago you get Io from Morgan Park, and he was asked to maybe shoulder quite a bit as a freshman for you guys with where your program was at that stage. How is that different maybe with Adam coming in now and you guys being a little more advanced in what you're building?
Well, I hope we're a lot more advanced. Joey, I think the one thing that is you know, I believed in us when it wasn't the sexy thing, so to speak, and we weren't winning, and we were building this, and yet it's never not been our vision, our plan to have the best players from the state, the best players from the city of Chicago, and the ones that fit. And Adam comes along, and I don't, as you guys know, don't get into all the rankings. I just know he's ranked really, really high, and he's a really good player that is a guy that fits everything we do, and he's going to be an integral piece of us continuing to climb the mountain. I've said the last piece is, you get close to that top, it gets really steep and hard to get there, and we were playing for that the last week of the season, and Adam's walking into a nice situation that he's got leaders, he's got guys that now have won. And that group Io came in with was very, very inexperienced, had not won. And so Adam's going to be able to, and Andre and Coleman, they're going to be able to benefit from the leadership of some guys who've won some games now.
Okay, we'll go to the Channel 3 triumvirate that's on here. Brett, Craig, Marley, you guys are up, and then I'll do on deck if that helps. I'm going to go to the Illini Choir duo is on deck, but let's go to Channel 3.
All right, I'll start here, Brad. How much do you feel like, in your eyes, you've raised the floor of your recruiting base, and especially from that year one, how much more are you able to identify guys you want now that fit into your system and style of play?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the one thing that is we fought early was winning, and we fought the. There's so many things that factor into that, and now we've got plans for the upgrade of Oven and people. We had so many young guys in at the end of the regular season to see State Farm Center. We had a slew of them for the Iowa game, and to see State Farm Center like that is really special, and a big tribute to our staff, and those guys are doing yeoman's work, and it shows how good they are. But Illinois got a lot to sell, and now we're doing our part by adding winning and the facility piece, and young people want to be a part of that, and they're guys that are potential next level guys, and when you can walk in as Io has as a freshman, Trent has as a freshman, Kofi has as a freshman, and have success, that's going to be appealing to a lot of people, no matter what part of the world they're in.
Anything from Marley or Craig?
Yeah, hey, Brad. I'm just curious as to how you feel your program is adjusting to this new normal of everything through Zoom and not seeing each other face-to-face, whether it be in recruiting or in your team meetings.
Yeah, I think we're looking at this in phases. We're obviously, everything was relatively fast, the abruptness of the way this ended, and we're approaching the end of the semester. We're approaching finals coming up, and the new norm was, online learning and staying really, really connected with those guys to handle the academic piece. They don't have access to weight rooms. They don't have access to gyms. So that's what a great staff does. We've had many meetings talking about what we're doing with the weights, and Fletch is putting videos together. We're doing Zoom calls twice a week, not just talking about basketball. We talked about The Last Dance on Monday. Tonight will be some other things, and then once the semester ends, as summer school approaches, then we can integrate the new guys into those things. We're putting a library, so to speak, of some videos of individual workouts together. So when things do loosen up for each of these guys, they can do individual workouts on their own that pertain to us. And then the really important piece is developing that that chemistry, although it's not face to face, developing that chemistry with those new guys. And, then we'll try not to get too far ahead that way, as we don't know what this looks like moving into late summer or the fall. But we're managing quite well, and our guys are I think the walls are closing in a little bit at home, but it's a time to grow. And I think the one thing that we're talking about is we want to win the weight, and making sure that that was a story I read on Doc Rivers, and we just kind of adapted that as well to give him credit. I thought it made a lot of sense, and keep our guys thinking about being a top 20 program and continuing to work like a top 20 program, and win the weight seemed like a great way to go about it.
Brad, I know there was a lot of anticipation from the fan base. People were waiting for Adam to sign. Were you pushing the envelope a little bit in that sense? Or were you kind of patient with his decision as far as making decisions for your program?
No, I've once he committed, I've been extremely confident in where all of this was at with Adam, and so everybody's kind of got their own timetable, and circumstances are obviously a little different here with Corona, but no, I've got the utmost confidence since the day he committed that he was going to be an Illini.
Okay, we'll go to Illini Inquirer for Jeremy and Derek, and then we'll have Orange and Blue News. Brad and Kedrick, you guys are on deck after them.
Hey, Brad, hope you're well. Obviously, Io and Adam are inevitably going to be compared, even though they're different players, different people. In what ways are they similar and different coming into your program?
I don't know if I've ever looked at it that way, but I know that the fans will, and you will, and just because they come from Morgan Park, obviously they're winners. That's an important piece. I think that I think Adam's an elite shooter, and physically their bodies are at different points. You look at Adam physically, he's 6'4", he's strong, he's got great legs, he's got a great base. I think it's too early to comment on the basketball piece. Io was so electric, and I got to remember back to Io as a freshman to make those same adjustments. We remember Io here as the end of his sophomore year, but yeah, I think there's some similarities, but their style of play is completely different, and Adam's an elite shooter, and yet he's got enough game that he's a really good finisher with that athleticism and that contact. I think he's a guy who can get to the foul line a ton, just that they've got different genetics, and that's probably the biggest adjustment. Those two, the biggest difference.
Just one quick follow-up. How much do Io, Kofi, their success, how much does that help you guys land somebody like Adam or future guys?
Well, that's one of the keys, and I've said it many times that what are we going back to Myers? I think is the last NBA guy that's been at Illinois, and when you play in the best league in the country, I hope we're recruiting guys and continually recruiting guys that are going to be in that situation to go test those waters and potentially play at that next level. And that means that, we give ourselves a chance to compete, and every other program in this league for the most part has got those guys, and to get where we want to get, we've got to continue to recruit them, and it sure helps to now start, that train that those guys are in a position to even look at the professional level.
Brad, when you were hired, you talked about wanting to be the option for the top players in the state. How far do you think you've come in terms of just the brand of the program in state to get Io, to have him succeed like he did, to win on the court this year, and then to sign Adam? What does that do for you? How's that process been, and what does that mean for the future?
Well, I think that's probably a better question for a lot of the other high school coaches and AAU programs to answer. I look at it. I think winning helps Derek. I think that obviously Io was the first freshman to ever lead an Illini team in scoring. He becomes an all-league guy. Everybody sees his body change. So I think that, he's such a great representative of our program and representative of the city of Chicago and the state. So I think that's obviously something that can be contagious and could be something that other young people want to be a part of. And obviously it impacted Adam and their history together, their time playing together. They won a state championship, and I don't see that stopping. I think that winning helps a lot of that, and we're going to continue to try to recruit the state's best players. And this state has unbelievable coaches and unbelievable AAU programs, and I do think that playing in front of 15,000 in the orange and blue every night in the best league in the country is going to be appealing to those here in our state.
Okay, if we have anything from Brad and Kedrick, I'll turn it to you, and then we'll have Nico on deck.
Hey, Coach, how are you doing? This is Kedrick. Just real quick, can you tell us when you first got the job to what the recruiting has been like now, as far as the parents and players and coaches, the way the people perceive the program? I'm sure going into it, they wanted to see the product on the floor, but now that they've seen it, what has it been like? Is it a little bit tougher or easier for you now?
Oh, it's I don't want to say it's ever easy. It's never easy, Kat. It's one of those deals that, but it's nice to we were selling a vision, and early on, and that vision was not reality. It was not something that was you're building and you're changing, and you had to have a vision to be a part of that and to believe in that. Now we can show hard facts, and we can show them the success that individual players have had, not at Illinois, not just show up guys that have been successful at Oklahoma State or Stephen F. Austin, and now we can show winning, and we can show the growth of and being redone, and the facilities, and so it's much easier to sell that, and that's a big piece of it. Having guys that are potential pros helps, but I think overall that our style of play, the speed with which we play, our defensive intensity, the success freshmen have had, all of that is something that is helped immensely in the recruiting that we didn't have early. And I think, Ked, the other thing to that piece, is to be honest, I mean, our locker room. We've got a locker room full of great guys, and other players want to be a part of that. And I think that's another big piece to this.
Okay. Well, a quick follow-up. I know you said that when you first got hired, this was your dream job, a great destination. Is it living up to expectations and what you think?
I'm never going to mess with happy, man. I'm the happiest guy in the world. And when you're surrounded by really good people, now I wish it maybe wasn't raining and 50 degrees today, but you play in the best league in the country, in front of the best fans. And when you start evaluating all of that, I work with a great group of guys. I'm surrounded by terrific people, and they're all helping us be successful. And so when I say don't mess with happy, that's what I mean. I'm the happiest guy in the world, and I can't imagine being anyplace else. So yeah, this has been something that's been electric for myself and my family.
Go ahead, Brad.
Brad, as you now have anywhere from 1 to 3 openings still on your roster, depending on Io and Kofi, and what are you looking to add to your for next season now?
Are you on my staff? Because we're asking those same questions daily. Brad, it's one of those things that is the challenge when you have guys in the draft. We'll look for the best available. We're being very, very, very selective. I think that there's a chance we could have a sit-out guy. I think there's a chance it could be at any one of a couple of different positions. I think we're evaluating. There's enough data out there and information now about how transfers have worked, and grad transfers in particular, and success and failures. And this has given us tremendous opportunity to dig deep into each of these young people. And to be honest, I mean, it's got to be the right fit. It's got to be about winning. Is somebody going to step in here and average 20 a game? Probably not. But we'll see. It's an ever-changing. We're checking the portal. I would expect with the NCAA relaxing the ACT and SAT rules, I would say we're going to see a huge group of underclassmen class up if they can. So I think that'll all happen here sometime very soon, and maybe that's a possibility. But we're in a pretty good holding pattern, but we're actively working every single day, and to be honest, we're spending a ton of time on 21s as well.
So just one other follow-up. How important is it to add a person who can space the floor like Adam, adding shooters? Last year, obviously, you guys didn't shoot the ball very well from distance. And this year, obviously that's going to be something you want to improve on. How important is Adam to that?
Yeah, it's huge. And, that was one of the things that I think we were the most disappointed in is we didn't shoot the ball well last year. And we were a little surprised by that. And we feel great about, Austin being a really, really good shooter. He's proven that in 60-plus college games already. Jacob has improved tremendously. Spent an off season shooting a million balls. And then you add an elite shooter. In Adam. So I think that's we don't expect Trent to have maybe the off year shooting that he had. He's hovered around 40% his first 2. But I think that'll be an area that, and I add Coleman to that. Coleman's an elite shooter. So I think we'll be a little different team from that perspective. And Adam's obviously, one of the best shooters in this class.
Okay, we'll go to Nico, and then we'll have Scott Beatty on deck. And I'm in baseball season. I'm going in the hole. Rob McCauley will be in the hole.
Brad, I know a lot went into trying to figure out the balance between Trent, Andres, and Io as good ball handlers. Have you guys already kind of started talking about how to maybe get that next group of ball handlers the ball and kind of working that rotation with Trent, Adam, and Andre next season?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think I think that we have so much versatility that you'll see guys, and it kind of works itself out throughout the course of the experience and give and take and learning and figuring out people's strengths. And we've spent a lot of time studying a lot of different things offensively that I'm excited about. And like I said, I mean, you can see us play a lot of different lineups. As we did this year. We played smaller at times, we played bigger at times. We could still have all of those luxuries. I've said it that I think Curbelo and Coleman are two of the elite passers. In the country, Adam's a very good passer. So is Austin, and so we'll be a different team that we got to capitalize on that, and we spend a lot of time right now this time of year working on different packages, looking at all that stuff.
Go ahead, Scott.
First off, thanks for setting things up this way. Could you, Brad, tell us what the role was your assistants played in recruiting both, especially Adam Miller and Andre Curbelo?
Well, I think the one thing is, it's you always try to prepare the best you can for what you think your needs are going to be as a collective unit. I'm always going to be one of those guys that I hope I'm heavy on guards. I really think that was one of the things that helped us be set up for a deep run in March this year was we had really good guards. So in Curbelo, and I'm fascinated with passing and then Adam is a guy that does both and got an elite skill set. We identified those needs early on. We knew that would fit, and we've got a couple spots, and I just think it's a good combination to have. And both those guys are different, and they're really good players who excel at making others better.
Maybe my question wasn't clear. I was curious the role that like Chin Coleman played and
I'm sorry.
Orlando played and
Well,
Steven in the recruitments of those guys.
Yeah, they're huge. We recruit as a group. We recruit as a team. Obviously, Chin's connections in the Chicago area are huge, and he does an incredible job of building relationships. Orlando was well documented his involvement with the Curbelos and his connections with his father and playing professionally and all the international experience that Orlando has. But I'm very fortunate. I've got a terrific staff, and Steven has fit in incredibly well. And they all do something different. They all bring different pieces, different skill sets, and to me, that's what makes us unique. And I think very, I don't want to say unique, but I think it makes us successful. Is we're all different, and yet they're all terrific human beings, and they're all great at building relationships with people. And without relationships, we're not getting those guys, and so they're a huge piece of this.
And then one more, as you add talent like Io, Kofi, and now Adam, guys that at least have the potential for early exits, there's already a lot of roster turnover in college basketball. Obviously, it's a good problem to have because it means you're bringing in talent, but does it add a layer of complexity or challenge to building consistency?
I think not really. I think it is what it is. I think we're looking at, you guys probably know better than I how many guys are on the transfer portal today. We've got to bring in the best players who fit our style, who fit our program, and not get overly concerned. I think the days of worrying about class balance and we want 3 freshmen and 3 sophomores, and those days are long gone. We're going to continue to, once the transfer waiver kicks in, we're going to continue to see this trend, I think, for a little bit until it all settles out. And we've got to recruit great character who are really good players, and this staff is doing a great job of that. And when I say the recruiting never stops, it never stops, and that's going to become more and more evident every day.
And we're going to go to Rob, and we'll have Robert on deck and Matthew in the hole.
This is kind of a follow-up to Marley's question. Why was it important for Adam to sign now in terms of what you can do for him in June? Financial aid, meals, a new place to live. Do you have any idea what you're going to be doing in June?
No, Rob, I think we're all everything's very fluid at this point in time. I don't think that, there's so many layers to this that we get the trickle down from the government, from the state, from university administration, and then to DIA, and then it gets to us. So there's a lot of layers before it gets to us as to what this thing's going to look like yet. And I've early on I tried to play out a million scenarios and maybe plan for all of them. And beyond that, I drove myself crazy. So I think it's just about literally operating day to day and creating those best case scenarios or worst case scenarios. And right now I think we know that everything's going to be online in the summer. They'll get in online classes, and it'll just be a different off season. And the way we're looking right now, and beyond that, we'll wait and see.
I guess apart from online classes, and not to drive you any more crazy, but what is the latest update from Josh from the state about how things are going to move forward?
Yeah, there really hasn't been. I mean, we are what we are. We're still stay at home. We're we're going to be, I should say there's probably a couple other layers in there with the NCAA, with the Big Ten. We're looking at a lot of different things that, how they institute once we do come back, what that looks like in terms of bringing kids to campus, what it looks like in terms of teams not gaining an advantage because they live in a different state and can come back. And so there's a lot of things there, Rob, that we just sit and wait. And right now that's all we're doing is waiting for the curve to flatten. And then us continue to wait on the powers to be, so to speak.
Okay, we'll go to Robert. Any questions for Coach?
Yeah, my question is kind of on the timing of this class. So with Io's class, Io signed in November, and then I think 5 guys signed in the spring. The Kofi class was all spring. There was no players in the fall. Then this class was Hawkins committed in September, and Crivello in October, and Miller actually committed in November and signed now. And I know you can't talk about it, but now there's already a recruit for the 21 class. So has there been an effort to be earlier, or is that just how it's worked out with each of these classes?
Well, I think a little both. This thing is, and I'll go back to year one. Year one, when you get the job, you're not recruiting, you're just filling scholarships, because now it's about relationships. And some of these relationships have been happening for years. So as there's more comfort with our staff and the prospects, there is a more likely a tendency to want to do things earlier because you have familiarity. Some of them is just when individuals choose to sign. And, there's a lot of factors for these young people today in terms of the decision-making process. And there's not a great answer for that, but as we become more familiar with kids and we recruit young guys and build relationships with them and their family, there is a tendency for young people to want to sign in the fall or sign a year ahead. And, we got in a situation this spring where I mentioned earlier, we brought a lot of 21s on campus. We followed up with Zoom on-campus visits, so to speak, with those young people, because there's no AAU season. There's going to be nothing for them to to play in front of coaches, and there's going to be nothing, no campus visits, and that's really challenging. So those guys that have relationships, have been on a campus, are more than likely to start doing and making some decisions earlier.
Are you opposed to early? I mean, if you look in the past at Illinois, Jeremy Richmond committed as a freshman, Myers Leonard as a sophomore. Are you personally opposed to recruiting that early, or if it's the right situation, would you go for it?
No, I think it's got to be the right situation. And again, I think we're becoming very much the needs of year to year. But I think especially in your state, when you can be really dialed in with guys and travel's easy, and they have access to you and your facility and your games and your program, I think you're a lot more likely to take a commitment younger. And we'd be all in favor of that. We have no objections as we continue to build relationships with coaches and young people in the state.
Okay, we'll go to Matthew, and then Gabby on deck, and Jim Cotter in the hole.
Brad, I'll ask the recruiting question first, and I got an on-court follow-up. But on the recruiting question, do you feel like you're more, you're ahead of where you were before about trying to keep kids at home that you really, really want? And did you feel like when you took this job there was a hesitancy and you had to cross that hurdle? Or did IO kind of solve that for you? If you kind of understand where I'm getting at, there seemed like be a hesitancy of in-state elite talent wanting to come to Illinois. It seems like you might have gone a little bit further in reversing that trend.
I hope so. That was the intent. I think that there's so many positives here, and the University of Illinois is special. And I think that when you haven't won and you haven't been successful, that's a huge factor in people making their decisions. And I get it. We're not going to be able to take everybody, and we're not going to be able to take guys sometimes that are really good because they don't meet our needs at that certain time. But I do feel like we've become the option, and I think we're a program that can affect young people's lives in a very positive way, and so IO helped that. There's no doubt, and he was the right fit at the right time, and coming in as a freshman, and was able to really kind of help make it, and I use the word sexy, make Illinois basketball cool again. And then we started to win and put other good pieces with that. And good players want to play with good players. And, and winners want to hang around winners. So it's a combination of a lot of things there.
My on-the-court follow-up doesn't really have anything to do with Adam. What it has to do with is Georgie and trying to find his game with Kofi. And I know that there was some frustration more from Georgie just trying to figure out how he fit in his sophomore year. Is that something you still want to find going into this offseason and going into whenever you get started with off-season practices? Do you feel like that can still fit with him and in a world where you still have Kofi?
Absolutely. And I just time and experience will help that, and working through that. And I think we spent a lot of time this year trying to still figure out how to get Georgie post-ups and space the floor and do some of those things. That becomes a complicated situation because we didn't shoot the ball great. And, so spacing was always a challenge for us this season. And that floor became very, very compact because of our inability to be a consistent shooting team. But if we're as good a shooting team as I think we're going to be, that stuff becomes remarkably easier. And now he's got experience doing it, and I think that those things become a lot more likely to happen than unlikely.
Okay, Gabby from the Daily Illini, do you have anything for Coach?
Yeah. Hi, Brad. Just looking at a guy like Trent, who really just evolved as a defender and more of a leader. on the court this year. How does his role continue to evolve and just elevate as a senior and trying to get more of that offensive game back?
Yeah, and I think that we've spent a lot of time talking about that, and it's a great question, because I do believe he was the elite perimeter defender in our league. And you start talking to other guards in this league, and they didn't like Trent Frazier guarding him. And he's so assignment sound on the defensive side. And I think he went 7 games, Derek, or 6, whatever that was, without a turnover. His understanding of what we were doing is very, very high. Trent was a little bit unfortunate that he ended up, I think 17 or 18 of his threes were end of clock bailout shots that he gets stuck with. We've got to find that median. We got to find that place for Trent, especially in transition, to shoot those threes, because he's really good at it. Yet I thought he had just a tremendous year in terms of leading a winning team. And there's a big difference in scoring points on a losing team and then leading a winning team. And Trent did all those intangible things, and his value was monumental and so key to us winning. Logged a lot of minutes, but defensively he was outstanding. And then just his ability to not turn it over was huge. He'll shoot the ball better. I don't worry about Trent there.
Okay, and then from the car, Jim Cotter, you're on with Coach.
Hey, Brad. I had to step away for a few minutes, so I wasn't sure if this question was already asked before. But how does, now that Austin Hutcherson and Jacob Grandison have had a year sitting out to kind of observe and watch, what's their role going to be for this coming year with all these new pieces coming in?
Yeah, I hope it's a big one. They're good players, and we've added weight to those guys just in terms of the familiarity of understanding our language, what we do, being a part of 100 practices is something that cleaning up weaknesses in their game with a lot of individual workouts with those guys. I love where we got with those guys in terms of their bodies. Adam Fletcher's the best for a reason. All those guys are 18 to 20 pounds better. Now they've got to make that next transition and go perform on the court. What helps them is they've both done it before. They're not coming in here as true freshmen. They're going to be 21, 22-year-old upperclassmen who've been on the court at the collegiate level before. So I'm excited. They're multi position guys. Jacob's got an unbelievable motor, and has improved his jump shot a great deal. He's an elite cutter and passer. Austin can play really 1, 2, and 3, and then is athletically so talented. And then you look at his shooting, and that's why we recruited him. Is he's an elite shooter. So I'm excited to get both those guys on the court. And nobody wants to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about your guys you're signed and the transfers and all this, but the guys that sit out in your program, those guys are good players, and I'm looking forward to adding them to the mix.
All right. Well, we got to everybody. That's 50 minutes with Coach. So unless, Coach, you want to address the Chiefs draft pick tonight, I think, or this week, you're going to have to go ahead and take out that garbage now. No, Chiefs got to go offensive line or defensive back. When you're going to pay a quarterback, $250 million or whatever they're going to pay him, which he deserves, you got to protect him. And then, maybe if they could stop somebody a little more consistently, Mahomes wouldn't have to, throw for 400 every single game. But I'm curious to see the virtual draft, and then I can't wait for the last dance on Sunday. No question. All right.
Everybody be safe.
You guys can, oh, wait, we have from the chat, Scott Beatty didn't unmute himself. What was your take on the first 2 episodes of The Last Dance and your take on the series so far?
It's awesome. It's incredible. We spent all of our Monday Zoom with our players talking about it, and my takeaways a lot of times are different than somebody else's, but I thought it was so instrumental. His mother's advice when he got cut, just go work harder, and he did that, and and then to think that here's a guy who played 3 years in college, was coming back for his 4th year, and literally his college coach said, you need to go, and it wasn't and he talks about how he gained all of his confidence from college and how he became a player, and and then I've always been fascinated with Jordan and how driven by winning and the competitive side, and I did not know, I forgot about him only being on minutes limits the one season, and then he didn't give 2 rips about the draft choice and any of that. He was about winning, and turns around and goes and gets 49 and 63 in the 2 games when minutes are off. But I can't wait for the next couple on Sunday.
Coach, we do have one more thing. When can signed recruits who you've saying Adam, Andre, Coleman, when can they participate in team Zooms?
Yeah, that'll start when when they're not into their school year, when their school year closes down, so to speak. We can do certain things with them now that we couldn't as prospects because they've signed. But once they're high school last day of classes and their graduations, then they can join us. And the start of what becomes if it's early, the start of what becomes our summer 1 term. We can start involving them.
All right, it's lunchtime in my house. I have to serve, and so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks everybody for joining us. I think this was a successful medium communication. We'll do it again. Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Be safe.
You too.
Thanks.